All right, so awesome. Today we get to sit down with Coach Garnett, who's at St. Mary's College in the California, and excited to have you here with us, Coach, and look forward to getting some of your insight on, recruitment, athletics, leadership, anything that you have, barriers that women's face. We just are excited because we know that you have a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And so as we get going, you have a resume that is amazing. You've done a lot of great things. And so I think it's always helpful to start with folks to hear some of your accomplishments that you've accomplished over your life, either in playing or coaching. So feel free to give us a little snippet.
Okay, and this is just so you know, I was looking over your questions and the this question's always so hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about your accomplishments
Yep.
but it kind of comes full circle within your question. So I will share when I was a player, I played at San Francisco State. The year before I went in there, we had I think seven or eight wins, and we wound up. By the time I left, we went to the College World Series, came in fourth. My junior year, we were regional contenders 3 out of my 4 years. And I am currently in the San Francisco State and CCAA Hall of Fame. And my team is actually getting inducted into the San Francisco State Hall of Fame as well. So I'm really proud. That's probably the biggest accomplishment that I'm most proud of is the team induction. It was
Yeah.
such a great time in my life. Um, and then from there, I went and played overseas for 3.5 years. I spent 3 years in Germany, two in Australia, and one in Italy. And so the seasons were opposite when I was down in Australia. So I was playing full all year round. Won 2 German championships, won a state title in Australia. And I think my biggest point of pride during that time was during the 2008 Olympics, they were selecting the Australian national team. And I got to compete in that tournament. And it was just so intense and competitive and fun to play with some of the best players in the country.
Mm.
Um, and it was just, I felt like I could kind of hang with the big dogs when I was down there. So that was really enjoyable.
That's
And
awesome.
then on the coaching side, I was very fortunate to be able to coach, kind of get my start at Whittier College. I did that for a year, and then I went to Cal State Monterey Bay, where I spent 2 years. Had our first super regional berth, and had a good experience there. And then from there, kind of what I know you from was at Academy of Art
Mhm.
University in San Francisco, and took that team to regionals for the first time. We had a 40-win season, which was um, first time the program went past 29 wins, which was huge. And then now I'm at St. Mary's, which is a Division I school in Northern California. Um, the Division II is what I was born and raised in, so I never really thought I'd be here, but it's an amazing school. The athletes are amazing, and I'm having a blast challenging myself at this level.
I love it. I love it. And I, I put this question in there purposely because I know that it is hard to talk about yourself. And every person that I've said this to is true. It's the idea that, a lot of times as women, I feel as though we are the ones sometimes a little bit more cautious to speak on our accolades and things that we've done well. But I think people need to hear it because we as women have done a lot of great things and we're strong and we're able to overcome a lot of things, a lot of barriers, have all these experiences across, international waters and things like that people may not know, and so I want the women out there to recognize and be confident in saying that, hey, I can talk about myself because it is valuable. Because if you get a male in the same situation, they're going to give you their resume. They're going to say all things they've done well and successful. So thanks for bearing with me on that question, and I really appreciate it. So along the same lines, I think you have, had a lot of experience, done a lot of different things. Have you had any experience in administration at all? I just was curious.
I did internships when I was in grad school, doing some different things
Okay.
with compliance and with student life experience. But When I was at RU, I spent a few months in the SWA role. And
Okay.
so that was really exciting. That was right before I transitioned to St. Mary's. So it
Nice.
was, that is a different beast being in administration.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, my next question is just basically what drives you to be vocal about women in leadership and leadership positions?
I looked at that question, and it's interesting right now when you look around the world, the countries with the best coronavirus response have women as their leaders.
Hmm.
And there's articles about, you could read about it. And I think that doesn't mean we're better than anyone else. It just means that we belong in those leadership positions. We
Absolutely.
are just as strong, we're just as competent at making decisions. And the fact that opportunities haven't been granted to us because of preconceived notions of our emotional intelligence or our, whatever it may be, or the fact that we haven't been there. You see so many first women becoming baseball coaches and basketball coaches, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But it would be great for that novelty to wear off as well, and us just belong in those places.
Absolutely, for sure. And along the same lines, I guess what would be like being that you were a college athlete and you've played in again multiple different situations and high level and things like that. Talk to me a little bit about you when you were an athlete. What were maybe some of the barriers that you faced, and then how were some ways that you probably tried to work and overcome through them?
I had a lot of barriers. So when I was younger, my family wasn't super wealthy. We didn't play on the Batbusters or the Firecrackers, and so getting exposure to college coaches was very difficult. And the fact that I got recruited and was able to play at San Francisco State was a big deal. And
Yeah.
then coming from that Division II school, I had a really good resume in terms of what I had done on paper, but pro leagues and playing beyond that really didn't look at Division II athletes. Um, so that has really been a barrier in terms of playing career. But I was able to, um, because I was able to go to Germany and get my feet wet and work hard in the international scene, I was able to do everything that I was able to do there. And I feel so blessed that I was able to take the path that I did, because it was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and then as far as being a coach too, I think everyone kind of knows this, but it's all about who you know. And so that's I don't know if that's a barrier, but
Mm.
certainly getting into this profession, if you
Yeah.
don't know the right people, you're in trouble. And so I was calling, I don't know if you know Patty very well from UC San Diego, but I played against her, and I
Okay.
just called her. I said, Patty, I want to coach.
Love it.
Help. And she's been my mentor ever since.
Wow.
And so I think that that's really important. And in terms of everything, like, we have to fight to make sure that we have the right gear and the right,
Mm.
that we're taken care of the same way that every other program on campus is taken care of. And that's not at St. Mary's. It's kind of across the board, is you always have this little chip on your shoulder, like, hey, wait, I got to make sure that my athletes feel like they are important, and that
Absolutely.
their student success and their student experience is just as good as everybody else's. And I think everyone who's been in college athletics, um, maybe they don't all have that experience, but they all recognize that that's a reality within women's sports.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you talked a little bit about, the D2 level and playing at the D2 level and how um, there wasn't necessarily a correlation to moving on to pro league and things like that. And so, I did have a question as to like, what made you decide on San Francisco State University to begin with?
Good question. I wanted to be a teacher. And so where I went to college wasn't really, at that point, I just wanted to go play ball. I wanted to go to I wanted to be in a big city. I
Yeah.
wanted to be at a good school, which every college is a good school. And I wanted to compete. And I, at the time, I was getting looked at by UC Davis as well.
Okay.
But at the last minute, they had someone sign. I was like their backup plan.
Mm.
And so, and they said, you can come try out, but we can't guarantee you a spot. And San Francisco State I actually had a friend who went to San Francisco State as an outfielder, and had the opportunity to play there. And so she told the coach about me, and so then I got a call, and the recruiting was so different then, right? You had to actually physically send a video,
Right.
um, and then the coach had to watch it, and you would hope that they knew when your tournaments were. It wasn't this email instant all the time. So she the coach was interested in me, and offered me a position, and she basically sold me. She said, if you come to the school, our program's gonna change. And there's nothing more exciting to hear as an athlete than you are going to be a difference maker. So
Absolutely.
I jumped at that opportunity, and to me, any place you go is your big time, right? Like everyone wants to go to the UCLA. When I was little, I wanted to go to UCLA, Arizona. Those are the big schools. And wherever you go, just make the best of it, because San Francisco State, I don't have a single regret
Mm.
in my decisions and where I ended up. And I was able to be that, stud pitcher and get a ton of
Yeah.
experience, and I absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. So you've mentioned a couple of things that I got from what you just said. And so number one is definitely about fit, right? It's about the idea of where can you go and make a difference and be an impact player? Where can you go that you're wanted as well? But where can you go where you can get what you want out of it? Like you want to be a teacher, like you wanted to get the competitive experience. And so I think our athletes have to do a better job of determining what that fit looks like, and the second thing that I got from that was, when you heard that you were the backup, for another school that you were interested in going to, I think in a lot of ways, for some of our athletes, that kind of jolts confidence a little bit. And so I'm just curious to you, like, what direction did that, knowing that information help you like get to? Like, was it more of like it hit your confidence and you kind of were like out of it, which I don't think that was the case, but or did it motivate you to push forward and things like that? So maybe give us a little bit of insight on that.
Absolutely. It was definitely a chip on my shoulder. And I've had two experiences like that. One, when I was playing in high school, I threw a peel drop, and I had a coach tell me that if I don't learn the rollover drop, I'd never pitch in college, right? And I didn't actually wind up playing for him. I was at a tryout, and I think that moments like that just create a little bit of drive, and I think I knew better as well, and I think that that's really important too, because there are certain athletes who need to hear something like that, right? Like their pitch doesn't work well enough to
Mm.
compete at that level, but simply because you're not fitting a mold that everyone else says that you should fit into does not therefore justify that you're not going to be good enough to play in college or whatever,
Yeah.
um and the second piece with the Davis was in our conference at San Francisco State at the time, so they were Division 2. So it just created a big chip on my shoulder. And the first time we played them, and Davis was always that team that goes postseason. They were really, really dominant at the time. The first time we played them as a freshman, we won 4-1, and we hadn't won, at least since my coach had been there. And I just, my coach still talks about that game, because I was like so, you know, into it, and like really wanted to prove a point. And um, there's really good things that come out of that chip on your shoulder. It makes you work a little bit harder. But you can't be deflated from it. You just have to know that someone didn't see your real value.
And recognize that that doesn't define your value. Basically what you're saying, they don't recognize it, but internally don't let that define what that is for you. And so I think
Right.
that is so crucial. That's awesome. And so that's like really good information. I got to use that. But and I think it's really evident in career, and in any situation that you're going to go through, there's always going to be someone that may tell you you're not this enough, and then you're going to find that spot where you're going to be this and more. And so you keep pushing, keep thriving for that is what I got from that. So
100%. And I think that the other thing that really resonates with me right now is the ability to pivot your plan
mm,
as well, right? Like we've never dealt with so much adversity as we have this past year.
Yeah,
The teams this season that are going to do well, or the athletes that are going to do well, are the ones that are just figuring out a way
mm,
to make it happen and not setting unrealistic expectations, right? Like things are going to change consistently. We need to understand that our way through is just figuring out a way every day.
absolutely. Absolutely. So basically, I know that you've, like I said, you've played at a level where it's been high caliber and things like that. And what was maybe some of the hardest things you had to adapt to when you became from high school to becoming a college athlete, and then maybe from college to being a professional or overseas athlete, international athlete? What were some of your barriers?
I would say there were a couple. One was just training that
Mm,
much. Nothing can prepare you in high school for training in college.
yeah.
We would practice 4 hours a day. We were a really intense team, and so that was part of it. And the second part is I was not prepared for becoming who I am,
Mm,
right? And I don't care who you are. Those 4 years in college, you know, your mommy's not telling you when to eat or what time to go to sleep or whatever. You become
yes.
you're challenged every day with right and wrong decisions, and you have to every single day decide what is going to be best for you as an
Mm,
athlete, as a student, in your future. And that was something I didn't realize what was going to happen in those 4 years. And they were the most amazing, fun 4 years of my life. But I also was really challenged every day, like, wait, this is I can't, I'm not going to be guilted or told or anything into who I'm going to become. Like, I'm standing on my own 2 feet now.
absolutely. And I think my next question was around that same thing. So I think it's true. I was going to say, the question was going to say, do your athletes currently deal with that same struggle when they come into your program? And I recognize that's probably true, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think one of the other questions you have on here was what's different. Um and I think that the athletes now, just the expectations are so much different.
Mm,
So I like if I failed, like okay, I gave my best, I went off to college, I was going for it, the whole world wouldn't know, right?
mm,
But the expectations, the social media, the all the money that these parents are putting into it, everyone has all this pressure
yeah.
on these athletes. And so we know as coaches that when you succeed, it's when you let go of all that, right? It's when you decide, you know what, you're a better pitcher than I am, but if I hit this, then I'm the ish, right?
Yeah.
That's when you perform your best.
Absolutely.
But we aren't our athletes don't understand that, and they don't get the opportunity to understand that because all they know is you have to, right? And everyone's going to see it.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to know that you're not playing from your travel program because it's all over social media that you committed somewhere, right? I have a good friend whose daughter's committed to 3 different places, and it's everyone knows, right? And
Wow.
so the expectations and the um I guess just the availability to everyone of what you're doing every day
Yes.
is it's too much. I think it's overwhelming.
I got you. Yeah. No, absolutely. So I'm thinking about, I'm trying to think about what to get from that. But it's something along the lines of we're putting too much out there for people to see and expect of us without like making those having those same expectations for ourselves, like if that kind of makes sense. It's the idea of like, in the eyes of everyone else, like I'm doing this and this, so then I'm also adding that pressure onto myself that then people expect those things of me, but do I really expect that of myself? Like it's just, yeah, it's like a huge psychological thing there.
Right.
That's definitely.
And to give you an example, when I was growing up, my brother went to Harvard, my sister went to Columbia, right? Like I grew up in this house where I when I committed to San Francisco State, it was like, it wasn't
Mm,
academically, that wasn't I mean, my parents were proud, right? But it
mhm,
wasn't this big deal.
right.
And right now you're seeing people commit to anywhere. And it's
Yeah.
this huge deal because they've spent all this time on the softball field. To me, growing up, it was always, what are you going to major in? Who are you going to be when you grow up? What is our goal? Like, how are you going to make money, right? And
Yeah.
make your place in this world. And if I had known I was going to become a coach, it would have been fine, right? But at the
Right.
time, I really thought I was going to be a teacher and I wanted to be successful in that field. And
Yeah.
so becoming like really going after what you really want
Yes.
after college, because you're not going to become a professional athlete. You're not going to, right? And like, even if you do,
Right.
even if you become a professional athlete, let's name a softball player.
Sierra Romero.
Sierra Romero, right? She is managing her own brand.
Mm-hmm.
She markets herself on social media.
Yep.
She is her biggest advocate, right?
Mhm.
Those are business skills.
Yep.
She cannot, there's not a single softball player that can be in their life, in their own skin, and just play softball. And that's going to be their career and that's going to take care of them for the rest of their life. Sierra Romero will be lucky if her brand takes her into her late 30s, 40s, right? And Monica Abbott's been very like, we're about the same age, and
Yeah.
but she's had to manage her own brand, and she's lucky that she's been able to do it for his, or probably not lucky. She's very talented and
Yeah.
works really hard, but when she's done, she's going to have a huge brand and a bunch of experience that she can lend to the softball community, right? So I think we have to remember that even if you put yourself in those shoes, like you have to get a good major and a good education to be able to handle, even if you're a professional athlete.
Yes. I think so. Literally, my business in 101 right there from Coach Garnett. But the reality is also that like recognizing that and setting yourself up for those things ahead of time. And literally, leadership athletics is about that. Like the idea is that like, hey, we're going to absolutely, you can go be successful, be an athlete, get to the next level. Absolutely. But what happens next? What happens next? Because this is 4 years of your life, maybe 6 if you're lucky, right? And after that, let's take the skill sets that you've used or learned there to then put them into real life situations. And if we can think about that earlier in our lives, not thinking too far ahead, yes, enjoy the moments, but like recognize it, let me develop my brand, my skills, my leadership, my communication, like my whatever it is, those are the things that we want to be. Time management, it's like let's get those things honed in so that you can shift and transition the way you need to. So that's exactly it. And then I had a thought, and I'm trying to think about what the thought was, but while I'm thinking about it, just give me your definition of leadership. When you think about leadership, what do you think about?
Leadership has always been, it's kind of three parts, right? It's one, it's service.
Yeah.
It's certainly making sure that those who you lead are served by you, not dictated.
Yeah.
The second part is you lead yourself first.
Hmm.
So, what am I like? We're dealing with student athletes here. So, what am I going to do today to be a good student athlete? I'm going to get my 8 hours of sleep, and I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to go to the field and get some extra reps. And the third part of it is, how is that taking care of the bigger picture?
Hmm.
And the bigger picture, like in my situation, the leaders on our team have to be taking care of the program, right? So if they're going to go get the extra reps, they need to take a friend with them.
Yeah.
Maybe a friend that doesn't need it, or maybe a friend that needs it a lot that isn't willing to do it on their own, right? And the other part of that is, let's say someone shows up in the wrong shirt. Leadership is not going and tattling to your coach. Leadership is finding that person, telling them to change a shirt before your coach is even aware of it, because you're protecting each other and you're serving each other. So I think leadership has really evolved into, and a lot of people are taking a lot more responsibility with leadership than it's not go grab those buckets or whatever. It's hey, I'm gonna go grab those buckets. Can you grab that net? We need to be ready for practice.
Absolutely.
Right? Preparing the bigger picture, the bigger group.
Wow. And that's so true. And so what that made me think about was, um, sometimes when I talk to high school athletes, and we're talking about confidence at the same time, but what I get from them a lot of times is like, yeah, I believe I'm a leader, right? But I'm a leader that I'm a quiet leader. I want to show, and then hopefully people will follow, right? But I think what you said is very important, and I always tell the athletes that I'm also recruiting is that like when you come into my program. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman or a senior. Like I want to make sure that you recognize that these are my expectations and the program's expectations that like, hey, things need to get done. And so if you're going to do them, don't be the one that just goes and picks up the bucket. But like you said, go pick up the bucket and and ask someone else to do something else and recognize that like that level where you come in at, like you have that voice and that freedom to be able to say that because you recognize that that's what the coach and the program needs, right? The holistic picture. So getting them to stand up, be confident enough to recognize that, hey, like this is the expectation. And if I have to enforce it, even though this is my first week here, or I have to enforce it because this is my senior year, like it needs to be consistent, right? And so,
Exactly. And what you and I are talking about are the things that just make a program function. They're not things that make a program win. So if you can't ask a teammate to grab a bucket, then how are you going to be able to ask your catcher when they're throwing down to make that throw a little bit lower? Because
yeah,
you need it there to be able to do your job and tag the person out, right? So, and that's the things, that communication right there is the difference between winning and losing.
yes,
Is being, and it's not holding each other accountable. It's not getting mad at each other. It's not embarrassing someone else. It's, I have a job to do. I need you to do your job. This is what your job needs to look like for me to accomplish mine, right? And that's how the whole system's going to work.
yes,
And young women, and I would say even myself up to a point, have a really hard time saying what needs to be done in order for us to get a job done. And it if we take the emotion out of it, it's simple. But leadership is, I think, I think people overcomplicate it, but it's very, very simple. It's just a quick decision every time we need to do something for the group or for ourselves, but we need to lead ourselves first.
yeah. So, do you have any advice? Because confidence, again, it comes up a lot, and there's a lot of buzzwords that are out there these days. But I do believe wholeheartedly in having to develop confidence. And any advice for ways that athletes might be able to develop that confidence?
You nailed it actually, because so Sue Inquist talked to our team the other day, and she was talking about confidence, and she said
Yeah.
confidence is something, it's something that was in the past, right?
Mm,
Like something that you did in the past basically gives you confidence. So, but the fight and the drive within you is what actually shows up when you need it,
wow.
right? So confidence to me, when you talk about like earning confidence or all like what you're saying, is it's basically putting in the work, knowing you put in the work
Mm,
and showed for it, right? Like you can't go put in 100 swings, but they're loopy and high extending and terrible,
yeah.
and you're not focused and you're just going through the motions. That's nothing. There's no confidence built from that.
Yeah.
Confidence is going out, doing 20 solid hits off of a tee, hitting a line drive into the back of the net, knowing that you've been successful,
Yeah.
feeling good that you've put in that little bit of extra work. It's not a lot. You don't have to go spend hours extra at the cages, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that you had intention
Intention.
and you spent that time with intention. Now I've got confidence from that process,
Right.
right? And doing that over and over and over again is going to give you the confidence that you need, because we can all get confidence from hitting a home run, right? That's easy.
Yep.
But maybe our form was bad, maybe we got lucky, maybe the pitch was fat, right? Like that is false confidence. We need to make sure that we're getting our confidence from our process.
Absolutely. Yes, and intentionality was the word I got from that, and that is what I was gonna say is 100% true. It's that preparation, but it's intentional preparation, right? And so when you're able to do that, it builds that confidence up for you. So for sure. And so just a couple more questions. I won't take up too much more of your time, but maybe give me something that what's one of the best things about being a St. Mary's Gale?
Just the family, like the community itself,
Yeah.
at St. Mary's, and I gotta be careful with recruiting stuff, but the
No, yeah.
actual school, if you want to go somewhere where people look out for you, the small class sizes, your professor always knows what's going on with you.
Mm,
It's a really intimate community, and it's been such a great place to make home, because it feels like home, right? Everybody's looking out for you. Um, and it's just it's a beautiful area. It's a great school, and the academics are amazing. You're preparing, your athletes are preparing for life after college.
Absolutely. And so I remembered what I was going to just bring up briefly before, and it's the idea. So I had a conversation actually with a volleyball coach the other day, and she's done some things with the U.S. national team for volleyball, and she's been a part of the Olympics and things like that, and player and coach. And we were just talking about the idea that in a lot of ways, our men's sports have like a pathway to professional sports. And so that's awesome. That's great for them. And so a lot of times we have a lens where we look at that being, it sucks that like softball or other sports that are for women don't necessarily have that. And so in that conversation, I actually flipped it and I said, maybe it's actually not a bad thing. And maybe it's actually a good thing, because it goes back to the things that you're talking about earlier about leadership and your brand and moving on, that like maybe this is an opportunity to realize like, hey, let's not keep focusing on this one small part of our life and recognizing that it is a small part of our life, but that like, hey, I know that this is going to end. So what do I got to prepare for next? And so if we have the ability to look at that instead of like holding on to some sort of dream that may not, uh, give you as much fulfillment in the long run, or money or support in the long run, let's look at it like a good thing, and so I was remembered it. I was like, let me just say it. So yeah.
I think
Tell
that's a
me, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a great point. I do think we should have more opportunity for
Yeah,
women to be professional athletes.
absolutely.
But I agree. I think we're preparing our young women for real life.
Yeah, yeah. And so if you had to give yourself some advice to help you now, so if you can give yourself some advice when you were younger that could help you now, what would be some advice that you would give yourself?
Don't care so much what other people think.
Mm,
I think that would be probably the biggest
yeah.
thing. When you're in high school, I was really awkward in high school, and I cared a lot about what are people going to think of me. But
Yeah.
it just be who you are, be your genuine self, and people flock to that. When you're your genuine self.
For sure. And then just two more questions. Any advice for parents that can help their athletes at this high school level just see the bigger picture? Because I'm just so focused on the idea that you're destined for more. And so with my business, like I don't like to lead with the idea that I'll help you with recruiting, because yeah, I will if that's your goal. But like I want to help you again with more and being successful in life. So I think you're destined for more. So any advice you provide the parents to kind of help them um, maybe guide their athletes to think bigger?
Um, Gosh, I don't know what will resonate, but I will say that um, one of our worries as college coaches is that our athletes come in and their goal was to be a college athlete or get a scholarship. So they come to us and they've achieved their goal,
Mm,
right? And so what are they working for anymore? Where's their work ethic? What's their they have to reevaluate and buy into a whole different life goal at that point. Where I think we need to focus is, how are we going to impact a team, right? As an athlete, and then how are we going to impact the world? And that's your career, right? So when we focus on getting a scholarship or getting into a college or becoming a student athlete at a college, that's like celebrating that we're getting gas on our way home,
wow.
right? Like, that's okay, awesome. We're
Yeah.
refueling the tank. We're getting what we need to go the rest of the way, but we have to get there. We have to get home. So we need to remember to focus on what home is for us, and that's going to be our career. It's going to be preparing us with a good education. It's going to be networking while we're in college. It's going to be taking advantage of internship opportunities. And I
Absolutely.
don't care what division you're at. There's always summer internships and winter internships and opportunities that you have. And if you aren't doing those things to prepare yourself for life after college, you're gonna get stuck at the gas station.
Wow.
And to me, I think we are doing our future athletes, all student athletes right now are being done a huge disservice because we're worried all the time about when they're training, how much they're training,
Yeah.
are they getting the right GPA, but are they focused on how many great careers there are out there
Mm.
and which one of them they could be molded to, and how to network and how to advocate for yourself and how to have the skills to speak up when you think something's wrong and how to be a good person in society and stand
Absolutely.
up for what you believe, right? Like all those things,
Yep.
that's what matters. So, I mean, I'll get off my soapbox, but I think that and we could preach to parents all day and try to say that those things. But the reality is, I mean, you're not going to save a lot of money by getting a college scholarship, right?
Right.
You can go to a state school, you can go to a JC,
Yeah.
you could find a pathway that's probably going to be cheaper than your daughter getting a scholarship with all the time you're putting in. So let's focus on the big picture and make sure that they get the career that they want and understand that that's really the end goal.
Yeah. Absolutely. And healthy, happy relationships too, right? It's the same thing. It's like, we have this goal, I want to get married, but the work happens after that. Like you said, that's the same thing. It's like filling up that tank of gas. So that's awesome. And just my final question is, I want all of my athletes, all of my women out there to own their power in the world. What's maybe one trait you think the female athlete should have to own their power in the world?
I love this question. Know Be really self-reflecting and
Mm.
know who you are and take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
And if you can't take a lot of pride in that, go to work on yourself,
Mm.
right? Um there are New Year's resolutions are always great, right? Because you get to reinvent yourself.
Right.
But there's 364 days of the year, and any one of those you could change what you're doing and who you're becoming.
Absolutely.
So I think you really have to own your place in the world, and it's hard to do that if you don't really know who you are.
Yeah.
So I think it's down to softball too, right? When we're
Yeah.
talking to recruits, what's your best pitch? I don't want them to hesitate. I want them to
Mm.
know what their best pitch is. What's your strength as an athlete? Well, I hit for power. Awesome. Great. I have an answer, right?
Yes.
Um, but it's the same thing. If you don't know what you want to major in, if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, I'm taking my time. I don't know enough yet,
Mm.
right? Not
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know,
Right.
right? Like there's
Yeah.
a lot you could have a more confident answer. Like
Yes.
I'm 12. I don't need to know what I'm majoring in yet, right? But
Yeah.
own who you are. Don't apologize for it. If you have to apologize for it, go to work on yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And if we're checking in on that every day or every week or every month, we're going to become that strong woman leader or that strong athlete on our team or whatever our goals are.
Yep. I love it. That's awesome. Well, those are all the questions that I had for you. If there's anything else you wanted to add in there, feel free. But if not, so grateful to you for your time and for your information, your knowledge. I think it was very valuable.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for doing this. I think what you are doing is so important right now. And I think our world is just in so many different pieces that the more people like you there are out there trying to